welcome back to the channel. My name is Alex. I talk a lot of movies and sometimes video games on this channel. I have with me in person today my esteemed guest cousin, Pat Guy. How you doing, man?
I am fantastic, Alex.
Today,
I'm scared.
Today we're going to be talking about The Nun II. So The Nun II is the newest installment in the Conjuring universe. I believe it's the 9th installment overall. The Nun II takes place 4 years after the events of the first film, in which Sister Irene returns once again and comes face to face with the demonic force of Valak, the nun. I wasn't a huge fan of the first movie. I know you had just seen it recently.
Yeah, so kind of famously, if you go back about 4 years on this channel, I watched The Conjuring 2 with you. And then I watched the third one, and then I hadn't seen any of the spin-offs.
Yeah.
But I wanted to watch this one, but I hadn't seen the first Nun. So I watched the first Nun like a week ago, and yeah, I thought it was okay. Like, it wasn't great. It definitely wasn't the worst thing I'd ever seen. It was, like, fine. So the first Nun I enjoyed enough to still be excited for this one.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't huge on the first one, and I kind of, like, blocked that out of my memory. I remember, like, certain scenes, like, at the end with the crypt. I remember there being something with, like, a hand coming up from the ground at one point, I think, towards the beginning. I obviously remember Thaisa Farmiga, because she's the lesser cool one of the two Farmiga sisters. Hey, she ain't no Lorraine Warren.
Yes, it's pretty great. It's pretty great.
So, I mean, I really didn't have any high hopes for this, especially where this is the same director as The Curse of La Llorona and The Conjuring 3, both movies. I'm split right down the middle on Conjuring.
It's called The Conjuring. The Devil Made Me Do It.
That is true. I'm split like right down the middle on The Devil Made Me Do It.
Sure.
It doesn't match. Doesn't come close to matching the first two at all.
I remember seeing it in theaters and thought it was okay, but it definitely wasn't even in the same ballpark.
And I did not like The Curse of La Llorona at all. You're not missing out on anything. So I was really skeptical going into this movie, and we may talk some spoilers since it has been out for the weekend. So if we do get in depth into some scenes, that's your warning. If you haven't seen The Nun, you're a big Conjuring fan, please, this might be sacrilegious to you if we don't say. We might do spoilers, but fuck it. I mean, this movie actually surprised me. Yeah, I'm still not really sold on Shaves' ability to carry a full franchise. Like, if he's the man going forward instead of James Wan, I'm not fully sold there. But I think out of the three he's directed in this universe, this one's by far his best directing job.
Yeah, I think my main takeaway from The Nun 2 was just how much better it was than the first Nun.
Yeah.
Like, this was a huge improvement as a sequel.
I agree.
I feel like it used Valak more effectively in ways that were more similar to Conjuring 2 when we first saw her. Yeah. I also thought that just the scares in general were more intense. There was more going on.
Yeah, the scares in general, like the two that I point out, I think everybody's talked about the magazine scene, because that was actually something different that we hadn't seen in a Conjuring movie before. Or, not really, I guess I would just say the Conjuring movies. I was going to say horror movies in general, but horror movies always come up with creative things to do like that. Yeah. But I would say just in this universe in general. And then there's one towards the end where she pops out of a painting and the mouth pops out of the painting. So it reminded me of when Pennywise opens his mouth.
Sure.
Yeah. So there was that one. Those two got me, especially in Dolby. I was getting back massages.
The Dolby definitely you're constantly getting hit by those jumps.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with you. I think she's more effective when she's not seen. When the presence of Valak is felt. Yeah. And she's not fully in view.
I think Valak is scariest when she's just standing in the background or standing in a corner.
In a shadow.
Whereas once you get to Valak where it's the teeth come out and stuff, it's kind of she's not that scary.
Yeah, I guess that was my problem with this movie, or going into this movie, I should say. That it was just going to be the gimmick. That I thought maybe the gimmick was gone, that she had been overexposed, that they had used her a little bit too much. I sort of feel that way, but I don't feel as strongly about it as I thought I would.
I feel like she's a modern horror icon.
Yeah, she's definitely. I would say she's, other than the Warrens or Annabelle, she's definitely the icon of the franchise too.
She hasn't been used so much yet to the point of a Freddy Krueger, where now she's more of a joke. She's still taken very seriously and is actually a threat and scary sometimes.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I did think Shave. I don't know how you said the director's name.
It's Chavez.
I think it's Chavez too. It might be Chaves. I don't know. However, excuse us if we say it wrong. But I do think he was a bit more effective with staging the tension, building the scares. Even though some of them were a little bit cheap, like there was one part of the movie towards the beginning where you just see something walk across the screen like very quickly. I was like, that's kind of cheap. But dude, the deaths in this movie. Some of the deaths, I was like, they didn't have to go as over the top as they did. They went there.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, like they walk into a room and there's like all these weapons on the wall and like hooks, and I knew right away. I said, somebody's gonna die with those.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and of course they died.
What I appreciated a lot about this movie was like the first Nun was like very financially successful. Like I think it's the most like financial, like best as far as financial of the Conjuring universe.
I think so. Sounds right.
But like it was kind of critically panned.
Yeah.
And like a lot of people don't like it. And I think I appreciate that they didn't let that deter them, and they told a story that naturally comes off of that one.
Yeah.
You know, you have the same characters, you have thematically things from the first one.
Yeah.
So I appreciated that. What I didn't really appreciate, but like it's not a big deal.
Kind of like on the fence.
Yeah, I didn't appreciate that one of the things I liked most about the first one was the twist of how it connects to The Conjuring.
Yeah.
Like as far as like a certain dude in it.
Yeah.
And by including that person in this movie, which you kind of had to, and the way they left it off, it kind of makes it unclear how it gets to that point that we saw in The Conjuring.
I agree.
It's kind of left a little open-ended with some certain facial expressions.
I agree.
But now I feel like I need a third movie to show me how that person got from here to there.
Yeah.
Whereas at the end of the first Nun film, I was like, oh, so that's naturally eventually going to lead to the war.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think that was something I was really thinking about too. Because you had nudged me. You're like, well, how's this kind of... And I totally agree. One of my negatives with the movie is Storm Reed. It's not her performance. It's the character. I just didn't feel like she needed to be in this movie at all. She was literally just there to be like, oh, hey, I'm on the quest, and here's some religious guidance.
She was the soundboard for Sister Irene to talk to, pretty much. It felt like she didn't seem that essential to. She didn't have her own arc really, even. Right. Like it felt kind of. And I liked the idea of like two nuns going out and like hunting a demon.
And you brought up a good point because we were talking about it after the movie that maybe like Sister Irene. This is the spoiler part. Possibly would have died, and then would have been replaced by Sister Deborah, who's played by Storm Reed. That would have been interesting. That would have been an interesting dynamic, but unfortunately, the movie didn't do anything with Storm Reed, and it just she just felt so hollow and just so needlessly like thrown in there. Also, what I didn't like about this movie as well was that at times, there's a few different things going on here. At times, one part of the story was interesting, and then later on, that same part of the story wasn't interesting. And there would be another story that's kind of interwoven in, which wasn't interesting, and then somehow it's like they switch places, you know? Like, they become interesting. There's this artifact revealed later on in the movie, just like in the first one. The first one you had, the blood of Jesus. Yeah. This one you had the eyes of St. Lucy, which should be, feels like it's an Indiana Jones movie or something. So it does... How dare you. So in that way, it does feel a bit too repetitive for me from the first one, and I just didn't feel like the structure for me was necessarily working, where it was like we're going back and forth between these two stories, and they kind of switch places with whether or not they were interesting or they lost my interest.
Right. That didn't bother me as much. I liked that there was more stakes in this movie, like the fact that they were this boarding school, all those people. Like you grew to like the little family dynamic. Yeah. And you worried about those kids that were in real danger. Right. And I liked I don't think it was for me it didn't feel as repetitive as much as kind of like a lot of sequels to horror movies where you've already established kind of what the weakness of the monster is. Mm-hmm. You kind of have to do another version of that weakness, which is kind of what they did. So.
Yeah. Overall, grade A through F.
I'd give the Nun II probably like a B minus.
I'm sitting B minus.
Yeah, I'd say maybe a B. I enjoyed it.
This is definitely a lot better than the first one. I can't remember what I gave the first one. I think I gave the first one a D something.
I'd give the first one a C probably. I'd give this one a B.
I think I gave the first one a D plus, but that's crazy because it's the jump from a D plus to a B minus. I mean, and when you look at the actual critical scores, it's on par with the first one, which is crazy.
Yeah,
I think this one had more of a story. I think it was better made.
Yeah, I think it was more effective. Like,
Yeah.
all the scares were way more effective.
Yeah, and it offered a little bit of that over-the-top campiness that I think a movie like this should. There's just certain things about a couple characters, the way it's structured for me, that just didn't necessarily work for me, but all in all, a lot better than the first one.
Oh, yeah.
And that was something I was worried about going in. I was just like, oh, this could be another movie full of nonsense. That was the pun I've been using. But luckily, I didn't feel that way. I had my problems with the movie, but walked out of it thinking it was a pretty solid movie.
Yeah,
So,
same.
Yeah.
Enjoyed it.
all right, so that is our review of the Nun 2, not the Nun, the Nun 2. Pat, where can they find you?
So you can find me on Twitter at @thisPatGuy. My YouTube channel is Agamotto.
All right, you can find me at my official website, alexmaddenmovies.mystrikingly.com. I do have a link tree now. If I can leave that in the link below, I will do that as well. If not, then all my social media links, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Letterboxd, are all on that website. You guys are the best. Thank you for watching. My name is Alex Madden. That's Pat Guy, praying to the souls of the damned like Valak. We'll see you at the movies.